This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Welcome to For the Long Run, the podcast exploring the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated. I'm your host, Jonathan Levitt. I've been running for a few years now and have the privilege of meeting many incredible runners on my travels all across the country. This podcast is intended to share those amazing conversations. Welcome back. I'm here in Austin, Texas with Jesse Thomas. Jesse, thanks for taking some time to chat today.
You bet, man. Thanks for having me.
For sure. So First question, we'll dive right into it. Who is Jesse Thomas?
It's a very mysterious man that likes to run in dinosaur costumes. I am a...
We'll get it. We'll talk about that. That was my second question.
Okay. It's new. It's fresh on my mind, obviously. So I am a professional triathlete. You could almost say ex-professional triathlete, but not officially ex yet. Married to a woman, Lauren Fleshman, who's a 5K U.S. champ. I'm an ex-distance runner myself back in college, and the CEO and owner, co-founder with my wife and with Steph Rothstein of PickyBars, and a dad.
Cool.
That's me. Yeah.
Awesome. So you're here in Austin, Texas for the running event.
Yep.
And let's talk about the dinosaur costume you just mentioned.
So yeah, totally.
Let's talk about race results.
Yeah, I would actually very surprised. I'm very stoked with my effort today. So for the little bit of background for people that are like, what the hell are these guys talking about? So I decided 2 months ago that PickyBars needed a mascot, and I was trying to figure out like what could we do, that would be funny and kind of interesting. And I started trying to play all these puns off of bar. And it turns out that there is a dinosaur that looks a lot like a brontosaurus that was called a barosaurus. It's an actual.
Oh, I thought you made this up.
No, it's actually a real dinosaur. You can look up barosaurus. And so we found this dinosaur costume, and I was like, that's it, Picky Barosaurus. And so since I got it maybe like a couple months ago, and I've had maybe 3 things that I've done with the Barosaurus, and this was definitely the most significant one. I did a 5K this morning, and we posted it that we were going to do it on social last night, and I was going to race our other co-founder, Steph, who's a professional distance runner, high level, one of the top marathoners in the country. And so we asked people to guess the spread between Steph and me in the dinosaur costume. And, people guessed all over the place. So I thought that I would be about 3 minutes behind Steph, about a minute a mile. But I only lost to her by a minute 30, minute 36. So I was pretty happy.
So she ran 16, you ran 17?
I ran 17:30. I think the timing was a little short, but I had 5:53 miles on my Garmin in the inflatable dinosaur costume, which I was pretty happy with, particularly because I've been running 8 miles a week, maybe for the last 6 weeks. So
you didn't come into this Barosaurus race overtrained.
No, I was not overtrained. I was fresh. I'm actually will be legitimately sore tomorrow from.
Well, that's what's awesome about 5Ks.
Totally.
So you ran the 5K as the Barosaurus. Did you have any wardrobe malfunctions?
Yes, I did. Yeah. So it's funny because I did a test. I wanted to make sure that I could run. I thought I might do the Indy 5K in the Barosaurus thing. So I wanted to make sure that it was going to work. So I ran 2 miles in Bend like a week and a half ago in it. And it held up. It was hard to run in, but it held up. So I was like, okay, cool. And then today at 2.25 miles, it basically broke.
As do most runners at 2.25 miles in a 5K.
Totally. And it deflated. And And yeah, it was, I don't know if it was harder or easier when it was deflated. It was like a mix of both. It didn't feel quite as wind resistant, but then at the same time, like the tail was like almost tripping me up, and my big like PickyBars shirt that I had on, it was like falling. It was like somebody that had like emaciated, like the shirt was like falling off. So it was like holding it up with my shoulders.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, it was fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you're wearing a shirt that says "I love carbs."
Yeah.
You run a podcast called Work, Play, Love.
Yeah. Thanks.
And you're here with PickyBars. So let's start off with the work part of that trio there.
Yep.
What is it like working as the CEO of a company in the endurance space when you also play in the endurance space?
Well, I mean, it's great. There's, I get to be around be in the environment that I love. And, like today, I'm not going to go do a dinosaur 5K at Expo West,
right?
And a big food trade show. Although maybe I should.
Might turn some heads in a good way.
It might actually stand out, which is hard to do there. But no, it's a fun space to be in. I mean, Lauren and I grew up running, obviously, and we love endurance activities in general, and to create products for people that are in the endurance and active space, and then kind of simultaneously like live the life in conjunction with our company and our products and our brand is awesome, because it feels authentic,
natural.
Right?
Yeah,
we're just being ourselves, and that's a cool place to be in.
So I'm sure it comes with some challenges. What has been the biggest challenge you've had so far with PickyBars when it comes to what's been one of the bigger challenges you've had?
The biggest challenge has been owning and operating a company with my wife.
Yeah.
100%. And I mean that kind of jokingly, but actually very serious. Like, Lauren is a amazing woman, obviously, like incredibly talented, intelligent. She has her own opinions about how things should go. I was kind of designated the CEO of the company like about a year after we started, and I had my own ideas, and there's conflict there. But then it's not even necessarily like conflict about ideas. It's the stress that being an entrepreneur and a business owner brings on you, to have that be shared by your significant other,
right,
and then have that be part of
you both have that pressure.
Yeah, the family experience. Like, it's in the house. It's like it can be a weight in the house, right? And that's hard. That's been really, really hard, and it's taken a lot of communication and, frankly, therapy sometimes with Lauren and I, to be able to kind of work through that. So that's been the hardest part.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I've read a lot of articles about endurance athletes being the best employees.
Yeah.
And I would agree. Why do you think being in the endurance space sets employees up well for, or have you seen that has that been your experience as well? Yeah,
I don't try to be like exclusive in our hiring,
right,
in our hiring practices, obviously.
That's where HR comes in.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't do that.
You hire distance runners.
You must have a 2:45 marathon time.
Exactly. But I have definitely seen that. I think I would expand it to, athletes in general,
mm-hmm,
people that have been through a like legitimate athletic experience, or have a legitimate athletic experience, because to me it's perseverance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being able to, hopefully mostly calmly, although not calmly all the time, deal with adversity and things going wrong, and stick your nose back in it and try to make it work, and that's like the quintessential athletic experience. You win some, you lose some, you train hard, you get hurt, and having the mental fortitude to keep pushing is the exact type of thing that you need, particularly in entrepreneurship, where it's so dynamic.
For sure.
That you feel that a lot.
So another question I've had, and this is a selfish question because I'm very curious with the answer, but I'm sure other people are as well. How do you balance your own use of social media to promote the brand that you work for and have created, but also like you have other sponsors and you have other brands that you work with, and you don't want to, be pushing your own stuff down people's throats and things like that, food pun intended. Yeah,
totally. It's a good question. And it's something I obviously think about a lot. I think that people, to start, there's two things. You want to be, like I said before, you want to be true to yourself. You want to be authentic, right? If you're not, people will see
right through it.
Yeah. So that's where it starts. The second thing is I realize that people only want to engage with you on social media or follow you or whatever if it's interesting. And if it's all advertising,
right,
then that's not interesting. But if there are times where I'm advertising, essentially promoting my brand or somebody else's brand, but in an authentic way, and hopefully most of the times that my posts are, brand promoted or in a promotional sense are interesting, and funny, then it's kind of like, that's what I always try to think of, like, okay, I need to post this thing about PickyBars because I'm a primary marketing outlet for PickyBars, right. But I'm not just I don't want to just like post a PickyBars logo and say like, go to our website. I'm going to be like, maybe I can dress up in a fucking dinosaur costume.
Right. Or call it a Pickosaurus.
Do some, but that's an example. The other day I climbed a random snow mountain to do a KOM thing in a PickyBars sweatshirt, right? So there's just at least like there's something that's like beyond just like a straight ad.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to do, and then but definitely buffer it too. Like after some amount of time, or you can't be doing that all the time, even if it's good.
Right.
You have to just have like the regular stuff, and so it's a mix.
So you're fairly intentional with your use of social media, it sounds like?
Yeah, I mean, I would say intentional, not like scheduled,
right? Because
it happens. I just post stuff when I feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's intentional,
Cool.
Or I try to think about what I'm doing, before I post it. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Going back to something you mentioned before and something you've talked about on your podcast, therapy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, definitely.
So I had a good chat with Grayson Murphy yesterday about this as well. And she's like, hey, I've got a lot of people listening to me, and I feel it's like my responsibility to be authentic with the struggles that I go through and to help normalize it and things like that.
Yep.
So is that something you feel as well, that, you have an audience that's listening to you and you feel like, hey, this is something that I should be sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have, it's really easy. I mean, there are studies that show this. Social media can depress people.
Right.
I mean, because you see the best parts
it's a highlight, really,
of everybody's lives, and you think, oh, my life's not like that.
Right.
And so I think that what Lauren and I try to do is just be, and it's nothing new, but just be real with people and
mm-hmm.
be authentic. And I've only been to therapy, I've had certainly my own, mental struggles with a number of different things, but I've only been to therapy for two reasons. One was after my parents got divorced when I was really young, to try to get through that emotionally. And then
whose idea was that?
My parents. Yeah. And I think after a while, seeing my brother and I deal with it in our separate ways, and we I was like 6, my brother was 4.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we were pretty young, so it was a lot of like, how can you what does family look like now? Can we shift that mentality to what it is,
yeah.
to something that's sustainable going forward in a positive way. And then the only other thing is with my wife, And, we're in an extreme circumstance, obviously, because of the business, but a lot of people have, marital or, whether you're married or not, you have a significant other, it can be hard.
Yeah.
It's two people trying to align their lives together in the best way that they can. And that isn't easy. And I think that it's important that Lauren and I talk about that in particular, because I think a lot of people just think that, oh, what a great couple.
Life is great. Yeah,
they do that. They have this business together. They have kids. They're like, they seem happy. And that's true, but there's a lot of bullshit in it.
Right.
And so it's important to be really honest with it. And we have had, as we talk about it once in a while on our podcast, we've had blowouts. We try to be respectful with each other, and we've had to learn how to deal with all that conflict. So
cool.
Yeah.
This week's episode is sponsored by PickyBars. I've been a customer of PickyBars since their early days, and I can honestly say that they get better every year, both their team and the products themselves. Created from a need to have a performance and real food bar, PickyBars are one of my favorite fueling options. I've been a member of their Picky Club for years now and have a bar before all my weekday runs and enjoy their oatmeal before long runs. Both are super easy on the road. I'm excited to share 20% off a one-time purchase or 20% off your first month of the Picky Club membership with code For the Long Run. Enjoy. Where did the podcast come from?
It was an idea that I had that was basically just like, Lauren and I both write or have written. Lauren really is a writer. I kind of dabble in it, but, she would do columns for Runner's World. I did like kind of funny columns for Triathlete. And we always thought that it would be cool to collaborate on something, but then the logistics of like writing something together was really hard. Right. So we were like, well, maybe we could answer people's questions, one from the male side, one from the female side. And it was like, why don't we just do this live on a podcast? And that was it. It was basically like, what's a thing that we can do together that would be hopefully high value for people, hopefully very low cost for us in terms of time.
Right.
And the podcast was great. And the way that we made it, try to make it the highest value was literally just, you tell us what
you want to know.
You want to know. And
yeah.
we will answer those questions. And it's really easy. We answer your questions. And it's been really fun, man. It's a good deal. Like I've said before, giving us even just an hour to talk about other people's problems as opposed to our own, has been very good for our relationship, I think.
Cool. It's like on-air therapy.
It kind of is. There's a little bit of it. We always do this what's going on section, which is kind of like, the first 10 to 15 minutes, we kind of talk about some things that we're going through, or things that are going on in our lives, which is part of it too. But then the other people's questions always just makes you think, it's like they say, the best way to learn is to teach, right? You hear other people's questions and you're like, oh yeah, that reminds me of when I did this and how did I react to that? And it's very reflective.
For sure.
Yeah.
So you guys both have a lot going on. How do you feel about balance? Is it something you strive for? Is it something you think is overrated?
Well, I think that it depends on what you term balance with, right? There's a lot of, it feels like in the endurance community, like with, Steve Magnus and,
Brad Stolberg.
Yeah. Brad Stolberg, there's like balance doesn't exist
right.
or, that's not really a thing. And I get that. I get what they're saying. And I pretty much agree, not that I should summarize their book at all. But I think it's that, you have episodes of time where you're going really deep into something and your life is unbalanced.
Right.
And that's what I totally agree with that. I think what we try to do is a similar thing where it's like over the macro scale, you are balancing your life because that passion is that passion sequence is unsustainable.
Right.
Whether it's sustainable or not, I believe it's long-term unhealthy. And so for us,
to be all in on something all the time.
All in on something all the time.
It's like training. You can't be in peak shape all the time.
That's exactly it. And what we really try to promote through ourselves and through our company really is like this work, play, love balance where you're like, it's not that every day you're spending 8 hours doing this, 8 hours doing this, and 8 hours doing that. It's that over the course of a macro scale, 3, 6, 12, even 2 years, you're working on something that you're invested in, but then you're making sure that the other areas of your life are getting attention when they need them as well. And for me, ultimately, what that comes down to is like, it's a maximization of like overall happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the thing that I was trying to get to in like talking about balance, is that basically like I could be like the best triathlete in the world, or I could be the best CEO in the world, or I could be the best dad in the world. And I don't know that any one of those single things would actually make me happier than being pretty good at all three of them. And so that's what we're striving for, I guess.
Yeah. It makes sense. I had a good conversation with Magda Boulay about this on the podcast a few months ago. And she said, I'm not balanced, but I focus on the things that are important. And sometimes I lean hard in one direction, and then I come back and lean hard in another direction. And I think that like micro and macro way to look at it is very similar to how we look at sport performance. You have baseline, you peak, you drop off, and you're focusing on different things at different parts. So I think that's another reason that like athletes are sort of not more qualified, but better suited to or more equipped, I guess is a good way to put it, to deal with some of these like life challenges. Because what comes up, at mile 80 or mile 20 or whatever, like you've dealt with harder things for sure.
You can't plan for it. And I totally agree, both personally and professionally.
For sure. Yeah. So let's talk about the sport side of it a little bit. Yeah. So you said you can't call yourself a retired triathlete. Yeah. How are you grappling with that? How are you dealing with that? I'm overall well. I'm very lucky, right? I have something that I own that I'm very passionate about that I can work on full time. Mm-hmm. That is not the case for most professional athletes when they're done. Right. And so I overall, I should just, qualify like I'm super lucky. Yeah. Was that a conscious decision you made 10 years ago?
No, not like at the very beginning, but I wrote an article actually about it. I can't remember what it was called. It was called like The Next Step or something along those lines for Triathlete magazine. It's not called The Next Step, so I shouldn't even say that. There's an image of this. We had this great illustrator, and I remember it very correctly or very clearly. It's like a guy that's about to parachute out of a plane, and it's me in my triathlon kit, but I have like a parachute bag that's like a big PickyBar, basically. And the whole thing was about kind of me preparing for like the next step after I wrote it when I had been in the racing world for 6 or 7 years. And so I'd been there long enough to know people that were in the peak of their career, then out of it, and then kind of transitioning along and seeing just seeing various experiences after that. And so at that time it became conscious, where I was like, I'm 35. This is going to last for another few years at my peak, and then I'm going to start to decline. And like, what am I going to do? Right. And at that point, I was like, I should really kind of, I've got this PickyBars thing going. I should really make sure that it doesn't die, because it was still small enough at that point. It could have, and I would have been bummed, but it wouldn't have been like a huge deal.
Catastrophic. Yeah.
And so I did that. And then to answer your question, like, I feel like I'm doing pretty well, but there is for sure the athlete side of me that is like, missing it, and missing like being super fit, racing at a high level, like high level competition. But there's also a part of me that weirdly feels like when you've gone to college for a year or two, and then you like go back to high school to like visit your younger friends and like teachers, and you're kind of like, oh man, I really miss that place, but it also kind of feels like a time past. Yeah. Like it's young for you now. I feel that a little bit with triathlon, where I'm like, I miss those guys there's parts of it that I really like, but I'm kind of on to like the next phase a little
bit.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
It's a cool way to look at it.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for other athletes that may be, a couple of years behind you and they can, do you think this is why you see more and more athletes coaching these days?
I think if you don't have if you don't have something obvious like I do, I think the coaching thing is a really good route that a lot of people take because they're like, well, I have this lifetime or whatever of experience being an athlete, and that does transition really well to being a coach. And then but being a coach is a lot different than being an athlete. So it's not really the same, type of life. So yeah, I mean, I think that it just depends on athletes, like I had 2 guys that I thought about when I wrote that article were, Bevan Doherty and Rasmus Henning, who were two, I don't know, I'd say friends-ish of mine that I got to know. Bevan was Olympic gold medalist, I think, and, or maybe silver medalist. And, he just left and he was just gone. And then he was just like, and I ran with him actually a year ago, Thanksgiving, because he was randomly in Hawaii when I was in Hawaii. And he was like, yeah, I just got a different job I was psyched about and got spent way more time with my kids. And
the pendulum swings a different way.
It just swung a different way. Rasmus was the same way. Got really, it was, business savvy and got into that. But then there's a lot of people that do coaching and so it just depends on what you want to do. For
sure.
Yeah.
Do you have any athletic goals outside of the professional world? So like there are a lot of people that have, they call them projects. Like, totally. Do you have any projects that you're looking forward to?
I would like to, I wanted to run a fast marathon, like a straight marathon. That's what I was going to do this year. So like my kind of transition to retirement a little bit it was like half conscious and half kind of happened to me because I got hurt. I'd still like to run a marathon and maybe try to run it fast at some point, but
what is fast?
I mean, I had this kind of hope that maybe I could qualify for the Olympic trials. That would have been a really long shot, but I thought I felt like I was in shape to run low 220s at the time that I hurt my foot. At this point now, I'd be happy with anything under 230 probably, and, but we'll just see. So there's maybe that, and then, what I really like are all these like funny, like crazy adventure races. I just want to try some different stuff. There's a race in Bend called the Pole Pedal Paddle, which I've promoted before and raced before, that has a downhill ski, Nordic ski, bike, run, kayak, sprint.
Wow.
And there are like half a dozen other events that are like that at least from the research that I've done in the US. I'd like to go do some of those because I like this combination of like weird stuff.
Yeah.
Some mountain biking too. I've been doing a lot of mountain biking. Mountain biking is fun because I don't have to be, I can still be the fastest mountain biker I've ever been because I get better technically, even though my legs aren't quite as strong as they used to be.
Got it.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that scare you?
I don't know. The first thing that popped into my head was like something happening to my kids.
Yeah.
Obviously, that would be like the worst thing imaginable.
I thought you were going to say snakes.
Yes. No, I'm not too scared of snakes. I don't know. I mean, if there was a huge snake here right now, I would get up and leave. But I wouldn't like scream. No, of course, like health of your family. That's like the scariest thing. And then the next scariest thing would be, my own health would be, and then after that would be just the financial, like the business, financial pressure of the business. If like Lauren and I still own this business with Steph, 100%, we haven't raised any money. We don't have any outside investors yet. That might change, but we haven't done that yet. And it's a scary deal to have something that is now, it's not a big business, but it's big enough that it has outgrown our own personal assets. And so the swings of that business financially are scary. you know?
What's it like having the three of you as the co-founders or as the three running the business?
It's cool. I like it a lot. Lauren and Steph are really, they're more like owner advisors now than they are employees. But they just, what I like about with Lauren and Steph is that they just provide me that like grounding, like back to like why we started, what we're kind of trying to do. It's easy for me, even as a CEO, and I'm supposed to be as strategic as possible at the 30,000 foot level.
Right.
But we're only like an 8-person organization. So like I still get into
the weeds.
Yeah. Into the weeds every once in a while. They help me get out of that. So it's good. And then, luckily, knock on wood, we've been able to maintain our relationships and friendships and whatever through all that. And hopefully we continue to do that.
Cool. Yeah. Jumping back a few years, why'd you go for your first run?
What's that?
Why'd you go for your first run?
Why did I go for my first run?
Or,
like when I first
or why'd you get into running?
First started running. I grew up in a place where I live now called Bend, Oregon, and it was to explore the trails. That was it. And actually, that's not totally true. Well, it's kind of true. The other reason, I remember my first race. And so, in grade school, we did a one lap around the field. And I remember that. And for some reason, I remember it mattering a lot to me.
Yeah.
Like how, trying to win. And so there was some weird innate thing, because I look at my son now, I don't think my son would care that much.
Yeah.
He'd just run around the field. He wouldn't care about, which is totally fine. But it was just weird that at that time I felt that. So yeah, I think there was this combination of exploration, but also competitiveness. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
What do you wish your fans knew about you?
I don't know that there's honestly a lot that they don't. I mean, to be perfectly honest, it's pretty open book,
I'm waiting for someone to say I have 6 toes or something.
Yeah, I know. No, I mean, there's nothing obvious, I play a little bit of piano.
Yeah.
Be different. Never really talked about that, or I did at least a tiny bit, self-taught. A little bit of singing, actually. I used to do that stuff. I would never. It's my worst nightmare doing it in public, but I do like to do that. Yeah, outside of that, man, I don't know. I think everybody, it's all there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where can we follow you on social media?
At Jesse M. Thomas. My middle name is McDonald. So Jesse M. Thomas.
Nice.
And that's on all the socials. And then PickyBars.com or at PickyBars is the other place too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining today, and we'll see you out there in the Barosaurus.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's it for today's episode. Like many long runs, it's sad when it has to end. I hope you join in next week on For the Long Run, and in the meantime, happy trails. If you've enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to me if you shared it so that others can find it and enjoy it too.